Mario Kart has been out for an entire 32 years now, and with this, many of its tracks have attempted to rise to the top and failed, but one has been a clear exception to this: Coconut Mall. But why? How come all the other tracks have fallen off, whilst Coconut Mall somehow reigns supreme? In this video, I'm going to explain this with the history of Coconut Mall and how its impact on the Mario Kart community and the internet at large has kept this track at the top. To first understand just how big of an impact this track made, we first have to go back in time to the period it made its grand premiere. The year is 2007. Mario Kart is highly successful, with Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart DS being the most recent and most popular games in the series thus far. This all changes, however, when E3 announced Nintendo's most recent project. The game was named Mario Kart Wii and featured all sorts of mechanical changes to the party race that everyone loved. Bikes, 12 races, a custom Wii wheel, and advanced nitros and retros were all announced, which made people more excited than ever. Alongside this, 6 months later in 2008, the trailer released for the game, which showcased these new features and some new tracks such as Warrior's Gold Mine, Moo Moo Meadows, and last but not least, Coconut Mall. To be completely honest, when this trailer first released, people didn't assume the game would be the worldwide phenomenon it became 15 years later, but simply a fun new game to enjoy. The new tracks weren't overanalyzed or overhyped like they would be today, and frankly didn't have as much of an early audience. This changed, however, when the game publicly released, and all players actually got their hands on their Wii remotes. Coconut Mall was the second track of the Flower Cup, a pretty nonchalant placement overall, but quickly got a wide array of attention from all sides of the player base. A lot of the community were playing more casually, but since it was in the Flower Cup, the second cup of the game, it was playable instantly. As for the more competitive players, this was still the case, but they could now play online with the advanced Wii Online features to compete with others on this already fan favourite choice, or just choose a time trial alone and go for a record. But just why did it become a hit? Well, analysing this track, you start with a wide shot into the mall itself. This leaves the player with an early impression. The track simply being a mall is very relatable for most players too. Not the driving your go-kart through random stores while holding mushrooms part, but just the vibe of it being a mall. Everyone has that one mall nearby them that probably gets reminded to them whenever they're playing this track. This track also doesn't seem to try too hard, it's just a mall. Like, it fits the gameplay perfectly and layers a bunch of mall themed concepts onto the track, such as the cars, which definitely didn't pass their driving tests, the plentiful selection of shops, which are provided as shortcuts and alternate paths, and the escalators. Speaking of the escalators though, you get to go up these escalators, or down them if you can tell which side was which when you enter the mall. These were fun, as they rushed you to figure out which side was faster, and with the chaos of the other races and the items, it proved them to be fairly difficult at times to navigate. Moving onwards, you had the choice of the de-escalator, the upper floor, or just invading a random shop. I loved as a kid to fall out of first in order to try and pull a mushroom early and take this shortcut through the store. I just feel bad for the cleaner who had to deal with the constant driving on the nicely polished floors. I mean, that poor Toad was probably already on minimum wage, but then they had to be constantly harassed by Funky Kong and his shenanigans. Anyway, after all that, the routes merge into a staircase that leads upwards into a nice outer area. But before we get into that, can I just ask, why are the stairs like this? I mean, I can't explain it, but in Mario Kart Wii, the stairs looked all metal and weird, and I didn't like that design at all. The thing is, Nintendo must have thought about this too, as some later renditions of the track is completely changed. Anyway, the track. There's a nice fountain, and there's some boost pads just to add some variety before going through another metal staircase to what I always assumed to be the food court of them all. This area is nice, and it just leads off to two paths. In Mario Kart Wii, this isn't much of a choice, however, as both paths just lead to boost panels. When I speak about the updated versions of the track, this will be a key feature to note. Finally, we exit the mall in a weird fashion and have to avoid the reckless parallel park as I spoke about previously. That rounds off the track and leads to a clean lap. With this original version of Coconut Mall, there were a few highlights worth noting. Firstly, they managed to make the entire track inside of the theming without it feeling stale at any point. This is a key point many of the other contesting top tracks tended to fail at, such as Waluigi Pinball on Mario Kart DS, which mostly gets complaints on the main focus of the track not being the pinball machine, but rather driving down the pinball chutes towards it. This criticism can also be taken for other top tier tracks from before Wii, such as Dino Dino Jungle, with the overall lack of dinosaurs for how it's a dinosaur themed track, and Kalimari Desert, which tried to focus the track around the moving train, yet managed to make this feature more of a hindrance to the races overall. Another highlight of this track was it was covered in multiple small details which made them all feel full of personality. Mii's were there in hordes in order to watch Bowser bomb a baby, and all the stores and signs actually had writing on them to seem more legitimate. These features led to an outcry of positive support for this game and meant Coconut Mall was unanimously made the face of Mario Kart. This surge in popularity and the rise of YouTube happening simultaneously led to many memes and videos being created from this track, such as many variants of the Coconut Mall OST. And lots of wacky interactions in real life malls, such as someone playing the Coconut Mall music while being pushed around with his piano. And many people getting coconut mauled, including you right now.
You just got coconut mauled. Share this with all your friends to totally coconut maul them.
So as you can see, this track clearly had a lot of impact already. Nintendo also knew this, as when they released the next game, Mario Kart 7, released at the end of 2011, they went all out with their retros. Maple Treeway, Koopa Cape, Mushroom Gorge, and most important of all, Coconut Mall all made their grand returns, which is quite crazy, seeing as they were the top 4 most popular tracks, maybe except for Toad's Factory. Toad's Factory for Mario Kart X, guys, let's go. So did this version of Coconut Mall do it justice, or was it the catalyst to ruin this track? I spoiled this slightly earlier, but let's have a look. Generally, as a track, this remake is very faithful, but it has a few changes. Some for good and some for not good, but we'll get into them as we go into the track. Do you want the good news or the bad news first? Bad news is we have the least popular change first. Good news is that it helps people that are quite literally blind, I suppose. The escalators were heavily buffed in terms of letting you know which way to go. Before you had to really concentrate on them, but now it's like they're mocking the old version. It's helpful for those who just want to play casually off work or school and turn their brains off, but generally this was an unpopular new addition. Moving past the worst bit, we have the slightly less awful part of this remake, the ambience. Previously, this track had a very vibrant array of Mii's and general folk supporting you from the sidelines, but this version strips this track of this. Gone are the hordes of Donald Trump and Peter Griffin, and now it's just empty. I mean, here they just added a water feature where the rows of crowds were. This feels so lazy and kind of a slap in the face to the original charm of this track. 3 minutes ago, I was literally praising this track for having so many little features that kept it so popular. But they removed this with no mercy. I'd like to think it was due to hardware limitations on the 3DS, but we never got an answer for this one. From here, we get to the stairs, which have luckily been changed. Wait, how is this possible? The stairs haven't been changed. What the? I mean, this part doesn't affect the track in any way, but come on. These stairs are so ugly, and despite removing loads of random Easter eggs, they don't remove this one. I'm not even mad, I'm just disappointed. Moving on to a slightly better aspect of the course, however, we have one that was destined to happen. They changed the 2 upper routes. The bottom one remained a boost pad in homage to Wii, while the upper floor is now a glider ramp. This is a simple but effective way to utilise the new game's features into an older track, and while it doesn't make much sense logically, as I don't imagine many cars fly out of a mall, it's still very fun to take. Finally, they end off the track with the cars again. Or should I say, car. Yes. Folks, they nerfed the car section. I mean, come on, what do we even have left now? Did they have to go away for illegal parallel parking or what? Like, they just vanished off the face of the Mario universe with no explanation. Maybe I'll have to start making conspiracy theories if you guys give this video like 500 likes. So yeah, that's Mario Kart 7. And while for my review of this edition of the track, it sounds like I hated it, I honestly didn't, and neither did the community. The only thing that really mattered was that Coconut Mall returned once more, and we could all rejoice, considering this game graced us with the 15 best retros known to man. And Calamari does it in the Leaf Cup, but no one really seemed to care what state these retros were in. To be honest, we weren't ever used to retros being a glow-up, but just a nice return, as the S and Wii weren't exactly acing their remakes, but this was all about to change moving to Mario Kart 8 and to Tour. Mario Kart 8 was the next and most recent mainline installment being released in 2014. Yes, it's been 11 years, you're old now. This game released the same as every other previous game, and unsurprisingly didn't include Coconut Mall. Nintendo have never included back-to-back retros, so what would make them do it now? Anyway, this game was less than well received, with the single worst battle mode in Mario Kart history, little to no actual content being released, and it was on the Wii U, the most irrelevant console ever. As a result, Nintendo released this game in an expanded version called Mario Kart 8 Deluxe when the Nintendo Switch released. This included 16 new retro tracks, including Coconut... Oh wait, they didn't include Coconut Mall here, so why am I talking about this game? Well, in 2022, Mario Kart 8 got 2 new cups added in a new booster course pass, which was an attempt from Nintendo to keep Mario Kart Tour preserved. One of the tracks from Tour which ported over was Coconut Mall, so we should probably go back to Tour, shouldn't we, and see that version first. Okay, I know you probably don't want to go back to that hellscape, but we've got to become a mobile game YouTuber for just a few minutes, okay? Now let's analyse the track. So this track in Tour has 4 versions: the basic variant, reversed, tricks and reverse trick variants. These are all fundamentally the same track, but Nintendo made a playable backwards route, and ones with some of lots of extra little alternate trickable paths for every single track. Considering this game is like the Smash Ultimate plus gambling game of the Mario Kart series, seeing just how many tracks it already has makes it impressive that they added all of these variants. So getting into the standard one, the graphics and texturing have all been altered and plasticized from the Wii and 7 variants in order to be more playable on a phone. These tracks have also been heavily altered, so its proportions are much smaller for the same reasons. Overall, this track seems fairly unchanged from the 3DS variant, however. The escalators are the same, the cars are the same, the glider ramp is the same, the stairs are... Oh my, the stairs have finally been changed. Praise be to Nintendo, the holy ones. I never doubted they'd change the stairs for a second. This edition also has some added ramps for tricks, but who cares when we have stairs? The other version overall are very altered, so they actually work, like the reversed version having these super jarring ramps that lead into where the glider ramp was, and the trick versions just has this random path over the fountain area, but these aren't necessarily important as it was only the main variant that got added into 8 Deluxe's booster course pass, which is what we're here ultimately for. Is this last variant something to go Coco nuts for, or does it make me want to punch Shigeru Miyamoto nuts? Let's have a look. This version, in my humble opinion, is probably the most similar to every previous version so far, taking differences from Wii, 7 and Tour in order to create the perfect hybrid track known as 8's Coconut Mall. While this track maintains icky plastic texture that nobody really likes, it widens the track again in order to make it fit a console entry. Alongside this, every asset in this version of the track is taken from Tour, so generally the layout etc. are the same between the two. However, there are 2 things that stand out in this track to be more similar to 7 and Wii. Firstly, the glider ramps are normal again like in 7. I didn't actually mention this but in the Tour analysis, but Tour switched which route led to the boost and glider ramps. I don't know the reason behind this, but the glider ramp is now the upper route again. The other thing that's different to Tour's variants is the cars. While it is true that 7, Tour and 8 still all have 2 cars instead of 3 like the Wii track, now the cars behave differently, something only seen in this edition. When this track first released, the cars wouldn't move at all. This was met with outrage from the community as Coconut Mall just isn't Coconut Mall without the added road rage. So with a future patch, this was changed, but not actually to how they work in every other game. Instead, they now do donuts. But yeah, that's it really for the development of 8's Coconut Mall. Now that we've analysed all of them, how much of an impact has this track had, and does it really deserve the title of Mario Kart's most popular track? Well, its pros include having a very unique yet common theming, being placed at a somewhat average difficulty so all the players in the community can have fun on the track, a banger soundtrack, lots of meme potential, lots of time trialing potential, interactive game environments like the cars, and adaptive mechanics like the addition of ladder ramp. The cons of the track are the lack of shortcut potential, and Nintendo somewhat degrading the track with each remake so that new players can remember the track less fondly, while older players don't want to play the newer games or want this track to be remade at all. Listening to everything I just said, I'll take a bet that you're thinking that this is a very good overall track and probably deserves the title of the most popular Mario Kart track. Well, you're wrong. Figure 8 Circuit is superior and the most popular track. Subscribe for it to come back in Mario Kart X.